Greta Thunberg's transition from promoting an ideology where basically we all starve to death to save the planet, to an ideology where she makes an exception specifically for Hamas starving to death before they manage to get rid of the Jews, is complete, and she is about to actually engage in a act of war, essentially. Yeah, the flotilla, the Freedom Flotilla, ironically named as is everything in this genocidal movement of the Palestinians, is supposed to reach Gaza tomorrow or Monday, and Israel's defense minister has already said it's not going to happen. We will not let you in, whatever that has to mean. I have heard such things from Israel in the past. I really hope they treat this with the severity that it deserves, and the fact that this I see all over the place people saying in the anti-Israel side, oh, they're threatening a child. Well, she's in her 20s, and Sir Davos Seaworth on that boat has also has experience as a pirate, so they know what they're doing. They're adults, and yeah, I hope Israel's threats are not empty. I've seen it before. Remember, Israel after October 7th said no humanitarian aid is going into Gaza at all until all the hostages are released. They said to Egypt, if you send in fuel trucks, we will bomb them. And of course, Israel itself has let in a tremendous amount of humanitarian, so-called humanitarian aid, knowing full well it's going to Hamas over the past year and a half. So, yeah, I don't trust strong words from Israel, but I always hope I'm wrong. And let's see if that's the case here. Welcome to the Daily Objective. I'm Razi Ginzberg, joined by Mark Pellegrino. Mark, actually, my first question is, have you, maybe I should ask you this off the air, but have you ever been in anything with, what's his name, the guy who plays Sir Davos Seaworth in Game of Thrones?
No, I mean, maybe I've met him at a con and just pushed it out of my memory. I've met several people from the Game of Thrones at conventions overseas, but and he could have
Well,
been.
any other thoughts on this?
Oh no, this thing is clearly just a publicity stunt. It's a group of narcissists together on a boat who are, putting themselves on Instagram and upping their followings under the pretense of saving people and breaking the blockade. And it really has nothing to do with it. It's really about just narcissists increasing their social media profiles and their reach and influence. That's all they care about. They're quote unquote stars. And so their primary focus is, social media outreach and increasing that. So, as usual, these guys are a bunch of hypocrites and frauds, as will be made plain by an X account that actually tweeted something out that was quite interesting. And I remember seeing Greta Thunberg um, at one point in the journey, noting the passage of some refugees afar on a boat that
We
they
have
said,
video of that.
we're instructed just to observe. Oh, you're on a humanitarian mission to save refugees, but you're going to let them float away in the ocean and then get picked up by by like the Libyan Navy or whoever the hell was after them to be tortured and murdered somewhere else. You guys are a true humanitarian mission. No, it's so clear they're just out there for their own self-aggrandizement.
Yeah, I mean, the timing of this is very interesting. Humanitarian aid has gone into Gaza throughout this war. As I mentioned, there was a tremendous amount during the last ceasefire, enough to last everyone for certainly far beyond today. But Israel now has a mechanism through which humanitarian aid is distributed, not by Hamas. It doesn't mean that it doesn't get to Hamas. It just means Hamas is not the one, are not the ones distributing it. Yesterday, for example, this organization had to shut down and not distribute aid because of direct threats by Hamas to specific members of the organization. Hamas has fired at people going to get that aid. In some cases, that was
Which was
reported.
then passed off as the Israeli army coming in and firing on people trying to get aid and even using tanks to do that. That was the absurd story. What was it last week?
Yeah, that was last Sunday, I believe. And yeah, by the way, we're gonna talk tomorrow on I believe on the reality show about a BBC Verify story where they're kind of doubling down on accepting Hamas word as news. But we'll leave that to tomorrow. Thank you, Regina, for the super chat. Thank you, Bronx Guy Gun Hill Road for the super chat. Um, there was some comment about the Brazilian guy. We have a video of him as well. Yeah. Shauna says Greta is literally 22. The fact that they are still treating her like a child is ridiculous. Well, that movement is based their kind of argument form of argument is based on never having to actually make an argument. So if you talk about something like we saw Pierce Morgan do with Natasha Hausdorff when he shut her down. It was like he was basically saying you're justifying the killing of children. She said, no, there are conflicting reports. The one you're accepting is from Hamas. And there are questions about that report. And in the past, questions about reports from Hamas have been proven correct, and the reports have been proven false. But yeah, you can't question certain things. You can't question certain people. And that is the way they want it, because if they actually had to explain what it is that they want, what it is that they support, they wouldn't be able to. They wouldn't be able to explain their supposed issues with children dying when they are siding with the people who are responsible for children dying. Mark, yeah, your thoughts, and then let's see that boat video.
I mean, I only heard about the exchange with her and Piers. Wasn't Dave Smith on that too? And didn't they just dogpile on her? Of course they do. There's a new thing that's become popular in social media called blood sport debating, and it's not an attempt to get at truth at all. It's who can corner the other person with sophistry and control the narrative and beat them into submission. There's no such thing as truth. And somebody as sophisticated as her, who knows her shit. I mean, if you hear her talk about this topic, she is clearly the one in the room, especially of those eggheads, who knows what she's talking about. And of course, Piers can't let her get a word in edgewise because he'd have to actually examine himself. And what he's more interested in is what Greta Thunberg is interested in. Clicks. He's interested in popularity. He's interested in bringing in the viewers because he sucks. And the only way he can bring in the viewers is to bring in vile, controversial content where he's sort of, pretending to be the master of ceremonies. He's a charlatan. He's like P.T. Barnum. He and Trump are sort of in the same they're at the same level. No wonder they're good friends. That's all they are. They're cheap, sensationalistic charlatans.
Yeah, I mean, when you say if you listen to Natasha speak, she's the one to listen to. Yeah, that's why he didn't let her get a word in edgewise, like a 3 minute clip in a row, 3 minutes of him asking questions, not letting her finish one sentence. And the title for that video was Pierce Morgan and Dave Smith versus Natasha Hausdorff. So the pretense is gone there. But anyway, let's see this boat. And we can talk a bit more about Pierce, as I'm sure we will many times in the future. Daniel?
Oh, why?
So, yeah, this is a boat. This is, the little one there is the refugee boat, and the big one is the one arresting them. And Greta or whoever is on her freedom boat is they're filming it because you can help refugees or you can film them.
Yeah, I mean, her excuse was that they were instructed just to document the incident and not actually take the refugees onto their ship, which is apparently too small to incorporate that massive flotilla of refugees there that you saw. I mean, which is literally a speck on the ocean. How many are there? 10 people in there? Get them on your freaking boat if you're serious about what you claim to be serious about. But you're not serious about it, Greta. We all know you're not. Anybody with a brain knows you're not serious about rescuing people. You're just interested in the popularity you get because you're a preening narcissist like every other person on that boat.
Thank you, Gail, for the super chat. Thank you, Bonnie, for the super chat. Let's see one of the other people on that boat, Tiago Silva, Daniel, or am I just saying a name because it sounds Brazilian? Yeah, Tiago Avila. It's close enough.
No,
Yeah,
what is that last thing? Was he wasn't at Nasrallah's funeral, was he?
yeah,
Is
he
that
was. Yeah,
okay? I mean,
paying his respects.
to me that constitutes abetting terrorism. You're a complete supporter of ter you're not just a complete supporter of terrorism, you're aiding and abetting them. I mean, so it may be completely justified to do something violent to him because that's what he is inciting against the Israeli people by his participation in these events. I mean, and saying, Allahu Akbar and, and wishing that Islam defeats Israel. I mean, I'm sorry, you're complicit. You're
Yeah,
complicit in the
and
war now.
he wasn't wishing that Islam defeats Israel in the how did Owen Jones translate from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free? A country where everybody lives in peace and democracy. No, it's a death to Israel, death to America, by the way, as well. Those of you in America who are in our chat every day telling us that support for Israel is incompatible with Western values. Yeah, those are the values that you're supporting. And again, yeah, you make the point. Nasrallah, his entire claim to fame is being one of the more successful murderers of Jews since the Holocaust. Um, yeah, that's what he's known for. That's his achievement in life. And yeah, people who went to his funeral went there to say thank you for your work and thank you for your sacrifice, essentially.
Yeah, you know what? I got in some trouble when I was forced into this sort of debate with Hazal Din. That's not his real name. I don't remember what his real name is. Goes by a pseudonym because he's a lying commie, sack of ass. And he immediately said to me, "Why did you tweet out that you wanted me dead? You wanted a drone strike against me?" I'm like, dude, I don't even know who you are. It turns out I didn't even remember the incident, but it turns out that I wrote a tweet in response to Jackson Hinkle, who is another one of the people high up in the American Communist Party who supports every terrorist regime on the planet, and not only supports them through social media posts, but actually goes to Qatar and hangs out with Hamas. So Jackson Hinkle took a picture, uh, you know, uh, praising like bragging that he was in Hamas headquarters in Qatar, and I responded, "Where's a drone when you need it?" So Haas claimed that I was talking about him, who was at Nasrallah's funeral as well. These are people of the American Communist Party. And my response was something that since I didn't know that I had just talked about Hinkle and Hamas and had to talk about that later, I'm like, well, I don't have a great deal of sympathy for your cause, and if a drone were to strike that particular event, I'm afraid I wouldn't have very much sympathy for the people who are going out there to praise a mass murderer as if he's a saint. And for that, I have been radically attacked on social media. But I would have to say the same thing with our friend here, who chants Allahu Akbar and hopes for an Islamic victory not only in Israel but across the world. I would have to say that where's the drone when you need one to him too, which will perhaps get me in more social media hot water with the droogs who think that from the river to the sea is actually a just cause to get behind.
I mean, look, we've said on this channel very clearly when Israel was doing that flyover the funeral, you can bomb that and no innocent civilians will die. I mean, those are people who are Hezbollah.
The
But
children, but the children, Razi.
Well, but again, if you hide behind your children, you bring your children to terrorist activities. Yeah, the children in Nasrallah's funeral are like the children who happen to be playing with daddy's beeper, when it went off. That is the status of children there. If you're a terrorist and you have children, anything bad that happens to them is on you, and anything bad that happens to anybody because of your terrorism is on you. So don't be a terrorist. I don't know if I read this, but Yotam corrects me. Didn't Thiago Silva play for Chelsea? Yes, that was extremely racist of me. My apologies for confusing two Brazilian last names. But yeah, I look. You talked about this boat in the context of potential violence, and we need to remember the previous flotilla in 2010. I
Yeah,
believe it was.
talk about that, will you? Because there was a leader in that flotilla, was there not?
Well, I don't remember specifically on the boat. I remember there were seven boats. Six of them, when they were told to turn around, did that. And the one that didn't, Israel thought, okay, this humanitarian boat decided not to do that. Israel, again, is always insisting on buying the lies of its enemies. So it said, okay, let's board peacefully, board
Oh,
that
that
ship.
one. Okay, I know which one you're talking about now.
and
Yeah.
and they boarded the ship unarmed. Soldiers boarded it unarmed, were beaten near to death,
They
and
were attacked with hatchets and knives and clubs. It
yeah,
wasn't a
and
very
Israel
nice
eventually had to use more force, and some of the terrorists, and yes, those are terrorists, ended up dead. And Israel ended up apologizing. That was Netanyahu's decision to smooth things out with Turkey under Erdogan, and paid the families of these terrorists. So look, in today's statement, the defense secretary, Israel's defense secretary, called Greta anti-Semitic. That's very nice. But look, this is absolutely an act of war. This is a war. The siege is part of a war. You going in there to break the siege is you going in there to actively help Hamas in the war. And if Israel, like I said, I've said this on a show a few days ago, Israel can be generous and give them the opportunity to turn around. But if they don't, I really hope that Israel doesn't do what it insists continuously on doing, which is put its own soldiers at risk. Yeah, you think, okay, what's Greta gonna do against a soldier? You don't know what they have on there. You don't know, you don't take the risk. That's it.
Well, what you're suggesting is that they do something that the rest of the world isn't really prepared to deal with, and that is they have high-profile celebrities on there who are doing this to up their profiles and as a form of virtue signaling to pat themselves on the back and make themselves feel morally righteous. I don't think they're going to resist an attack that happens in the same way that happened in that flotilla, what Turkey-sponsored flotilla. But they should be mindful of that Italian cat who was the leader of another blockade breaker, wasn't he? You know who I'm talking about? Who was eventually captured by Hamas, tortured, and then finally murdered. Hamas doesn't care about you. They don't care about their own the children in Gaza, for crying out loud. Why should they care about you? You're just a useful idiot. And when your usefulness is over with, they'll do what they want with you. And what they want with you isn't going to be fun because they don't see anyone outside of their faith and their Islamicism as human beings, and they won't treat you like a human being. They don't treat people like human beings. They don't treat their own people like human beings. So beware the side you fall on, friends. So I don't know, Razi. I don't think Israel can take the publicity. I don't think they'll be able to take the heat of the publicity if they actually treated this flotilla like the enemy that it is. You make a very coherent point to me. They're collaborators, and they should be treated as collaborators. They're aiding and abetting a war. They're not relieving suffering. They're aiding and abetting a war effort. But does Israel have the balls to take them out?
No. I
With the
mean,
high-profile guests that they have on board, this would just send up a worldwide cry that I don't think Israel has the PR the PR capacity to deal with.
it definitely doesn't. And again, yeah, we were talking last week, you and I were talking on this show about the completely fabricated incident of 31 Palestinians dying who when we talk tomorrow on the reality show, again, this is a story that the BBC still half stands by at least their decision to take Hamas's word on it.
Right.
So how will what will Israel do when they actually have to act in something that is absolutely the whole thing is a publicity stunt because if they do get in, it's not that they are feeding the starving population of Gaza. The whole thing is meant to stand up to a country defending itself and to say no, you cannot do this. And yeah, I don't trust Israel. Like I said, I don't trust Israel to do what needs to be done because it is so obsessed with appeasing the people who oppose its very existence and with answering every little accusation, whether part based on reality, whether completely made up. That yeah, this is what are they going to do here?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a no-win situation because if they attack the boat as the allies of Gaza, the of Hamas, which they in fact are, they look bad. If they let the flotilla through, the people on board win a moral and PR victory. Of course, it'll send their reputations through the stratosphere, which is really what they're looking for. And it makes Israel look weak, and it provides more space for the enemy to, justify its claims against Israel. I think the way Israel is giving humanitarian aid to the Gazans right now is an interesting. You and I are both for, the full scale allowing the Palestinians to feel the full brunt of the suffering that they have caused, and that we think that's the true curative for this problem is for them to be brought down to rock bottom so they realize their ideology is a death ideology and leads to nothing but death and can never be successful for them. We understand that they have to suffer in order to experience that. And perhaps they're starting to experience that now, but splitting Hamas off from the aid, which is one of the levers that Hamas uses to control the Palestinian people, seems to be bearing some fruit because I've seen on social media people actively praising Israel in Gaza, actively praising the United States, saying, "Thank you so much. We love you. We hate Hamas." That takes a lot of cashews for people in that world to speak out like that and to see the cracks starting to happen and Hamas starting to lose its handle on power is quite satisfying to me. Even though I'm against the idea of AIDS, you don't give material uh, help to the people who are trying to murder you. You make them uncomfortable enough so that they don't want to murder you anymore forever and ever and ever. That's sort of the idea of a defensive war. This seems to be having some kind of psychological effect that I think is very positive.
Absolutely, I completely agree. Yeah, I'm against humanitarian aid, but same way I'm against a hostage deal. But if I see a difference between a hostage deal where you give 1,000 terrorists for one Israeli, and if you gave one terrorist for all the hostages, there's a difference, and there's a difference here. This is really bad for Hamas compared to the other situation, which is Hamas gets the aid and gets to distribute it as they see fit. And this is also why we see all this panic, and we see not that there was that much of a pretense before, but we see that drop with news organizations. There was a reason why, since this started, it's not a coincidence. Around the time this started, we started seeing more outrageous and less believable news stories make mainstream news, like the 14,000 babies are about to die in 48 hours, like the Israel is massacring people coming to aid, even though we have no evidence.
I've seen now figures that are quoted by people on social media as 50,000 babies have died. That means that every single casualty in Hamas in Gaza, and there's somewhere around 52,000 or something, have been babies.
Yeah.
It's and people don't. It's like their rational minds have checked out of the building when they quote this kind of crap.
Yeah, baby journalists. I mean, look, they're not quoting, they're taking something, and as does Hamas. This is done at every level. Hamas throws out a number, it's somewhat based on reality, as in people died. that is the reality. Here's a number. That's the somewhat based on reality. And then yeah, people run with it as we saw that was last year, right? When the Lancet said, actually, if we do it by some sort of statistical trick, we actually get to the number of 170,000 or so, which is not what we're saying, but we're saying there's a statistical possibility that if you multiply certain things, you get to that
But
number.
then that got quoted. But then that got quoted and passed around social media and went viral. And I saw numbers as high as 250,000 people dead. And that got passed around without question on social media until it became the truth.
Yes, but Mark, you do like to argue with particularly retarded people, so it could be that.
I don't like to argue with particularly retarded people, but particularly retarded people seem to like to find me and then argue with me. And I usually, block them or mute them after one or two punches, because I just see that they don't realize they've been knocked unconscious because they are unconscious. So I don't know. Yeah, maybe I should stop fighting with people who are cognitively challenged like that. But then you can't fight with anybody on that side because they're all cognitively challenged, including Dave Smith.
Yeah. Yeah, by the way, Dave Smith in that 3-minute clip was the quietest I've ever seen him because he was just enjoying Pierce doing his job for him. Um, there's an anti-Greta boat, which to me is just more proof of how wrong Israelis, for the most part, go about how they think about world reaction to Israel and how they think they can change that. So there's some sort of boat with environmentalist activists that's gonna go next to the Greta boat and say you abandoned the cause in favor of this cause. Uh, Really, what do you think is going to happen? Greta has full on taken an ideology that there is no way that in the last year and a half she didn't look into it enough to know that for the people she is openly saying I'm on their side, that ideology is the extermination of the Jews. This is not controversial in even the wording or what wording to use in Palestinian society. It's only in the West that we have to say Zionist rather than Jews, but there is none of that in Palestinian society. What do you think you're going to convince her of? I mean, yeah, what is the point of that?
Well, I mean, the environmentalists and the pro-Palestinian movement have a great deal in common. They're both retrograde, regressive movements, and that's why they recognize each other and often support each other. And even though the environmentalists have their priorities of, killing human beings in order to save the earth, Greta has switched her priorities to killing Jews in order to save, the criminal Gazans, I guess, so that they can continue to create an authoritarian state in the region, and so that the Middle East can continue to stay authoritarian. Hey, that's perfectly in keeping with her ideology. I mean, she likes authoritarianism and, she's hostile to human life, and Israel stands for human life. I mean, they're life worshipers, unlike the cult of death that exists in Gaza. So I don't know. You'd think they'd get together and find some kind of common ground, lash their hulls together, and then try to break the blockade at once as partners. And I suspect that might happen. The environmentalists will go over there with the intent of scolding her for abandoning their mission. They'll realize that they have more in common than they have different. So lash their boats together and they'll both try to break the blockade together. And here will come the drone.
Well, couple of things about this. First of all, I've suggested early on in this war, when Greta started speaking out in support of the exterminationist genocidal movement that she is a part of now, uh, that Gaza is a great place for a proof of concept of a fossil fuel free society. Let's Greta should support Israel's decision, which of course Israel no longer stands by, not to let fuel into Gaza. Let's let them live with, solar panels and stuff. There's a lot of sun there. Let's see if that works. But of course, Greta not only doesn't do that, but in this boat, they've shown videos and pictures throughout their journey. They were having fun, splashing around in the water and so on. There's also a video of Greta or picture I saw of Greta wearing the jersey of football team or soccer team in Ireland that's very pro-Hamas. It has a PLO flag on it, and nobody seemed to, maybe it's, I don't know why, but nobody seemed to mention the fact that those shirts are made from polyester. I mean, Greta, has in the past, like when she traveled to New York for the UN General Assembly and so on, she made a point of doing it on a boat as opposed to a plane. By the way, that's terrible, but anyway, that's the life she chose. But yeah, why are you wearing polyester, Greta? That's not good for the planet according to your side of things.
Well, they don't think too deeply, my friend, because if they did, they'd have to see that their worldview is filled with paradoxes, and it's a house of cards that'll come toppling down on top of them. And they'd rather not do that, especially if they're popular because of their worldview. Once they gain popularity and start getting endorsements and money from that and fame, as Greta Thunberg has, it takes an exceptional person to right that ship and change course. And she doesn't seem like she's got that metal in her. So I reckon she's going to be in this position for a long time. She's been reinforced in it since she was what, 11, 12 years old. I mean, this person has been a raging activist since she was a child and taken seriously by the international community. I mean, imagine what that does to the ego of somebody. How overblown and grandiose her ego must be right now. A person like that can't go back. She's gone. She's permanently lost.
Well, I mean, she's gone, but she should be gone if she doesn't turn the ship around when told to do so. I don't see that happening, but look,
The rest
if
of the
it
world is
happens,
going to say you're advocating for the murder of Greta Thunberg. You realize that.
no, I'm advocating for Greta to turn the ship around right now. Think about things, decide to no longer support the extermination of the Jews, no longer support policies that mean that we're all going to have to switch off the lights and starve to death. And we would love to have you on this show, Greta, for a how I left the left, how I stopped being an anti-Semitic. I'm not going to say the word, and so on. Yeah, let us know when you're available. We'll even do it outside the normal time of this show. That's how much it means to us. But no, I'm for Israel defending itself against anybody who attacks it. Yeah, Mark, if you change your mind now and decide to be pro-Hamas and go on a ship to fight against Israel, I will advocate for them to bomb that ship as well. No offense.
Razi,
Yes.
here I thought you liked me too.
Well, I do, and I hope you don't change your
Well,
mind.
I guess your like no, your like depends on my values too.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
so
I'm
there
not an
you go.
unconditional love kind of person. There are
Well,
conditions.
there should be no such thing, to be honest with you, unless it's your child or maybe a puppy. But everything else, you have conditions to love them. Every human being should be subject to conditions for love. That's you earn love, man. That's just the way it works in the real world. So I would have divorced myself from the values that make me the human being you like, so I could see why you would dislike me immensely after. Probably worse because I know better.
Yeah, and yeah, again with Greta, she is not a child, but she is young enough that if she becomes rational, yeah, we'll be happy to hear that. We'll be happy to hear that on the channel. One thing that I think might happen is I don't think anybody's gonna sink that boat, but she might get arrested. And that's going to be interesting to see. First of all, because I expect people in Israel to protest outside her prison. There are enough people who are on her side on this. And yeah, what kind of international reaction is going to be over that? And then Israel giving into that international reaction will say a lot because it does say that what Israel is essentially saying with hostage deals, which is if you have enough support behind you, laws don't really matter. The fact that you committed a crime doesn't matter if enough people protest, if the world, issues enough condemnations and warnings and so on.
Yeah, unfortunately, these debunked international organizations still have some kind of input in Israeli policy, and it's unfortunate because they're provably biased, and people still use the International Court of Justice and the UN as examples of um, Israel's worldwide sin, despite the fact that those organizations are completely corrupted. It's unfortunate that we live in a world like that, but we do. And it's unfortunate that Israel feels the necessity to cow to those types of organizations and to give in to their moral premises. But they do. Hopefully, there'll come a day when they don't. I mean, Israel knows it's in an existential fight for its life right now. So hopefully, it will become even clearer what that exactly implies with respect to how it has to treat the allies of Gazans and Hamas and the acolytes of Hamas within Gaza, and because it's not pretty. But war isn't pretty, and it's not Israel's fault that it's not pretty. It's the Palestinians' fault that it's not pretty, because this could be over tomorrow. If they return the hostages and surrender and embrace civility, civil law, rights, this could be over tomorrow. The fact that it's not is because they're not surrendering. So,
Yeah.
um,
Not one bit of that, of course, is mentioned by the Gretas of the world. The hostages don't matter. The fact that they are, in tunnels, living in, uh, concentration
of
camps.
which less than half of the hostages that are left are living. And judging from a couple of the stories that I've heard, the conditions that they're living under are horrific. They are subjected daily to physical and emotional abuse and torture. People are left in tunnels that are 150 feet underground. There's no air there. They're fighting to breathe, and they're left in small rooms and compartments of these tunnels where they're struggling for breath, and they're left there for hours upon hours upon hours. They're not fed food that's fit for human consumption. They're treated worse than animals. I mean, there's no question that this is a humanitarian crisis, and if more than war is a crime, then this kind of stuff is criminal activity within criminal activity, and these people deserve their jailers, the people who are holding them deserve to, one, go have their date with their 72 virgins, and in lieu of that, be tried and put in prison for the crimes that they've committed against these people. Because the 20 survivors are not going to be healthy, are not going to have healthy psychologies after this experience. They're going to have a great deal of lifelong problems to deal with, not only health-wise, but psychologically.
Yeah. And yeah, physically as well. We've seen some of the released hostages, and yeah, the stories. The reason we know um, the conditions that hostages are in is because hostages that were released in the hostage deals before, and hostages that were rescued have told these stories, and that's how Hamas wants it. It's very important for Hamas to do this if when they get a deal, to do it in stages. They first of all want to always make sure they still have living hostages. I don't see Hamas agreeing to a deal where every hostage is released, unless it's a deal in stages that they agree to, but then break the ceasefire at some point. Um, because for them, that is the card that they have to use as an excuse, and also to hide their own leaders behind. Remember, both of the Sinwars were hiding behind hostages for most of the time, which is why it took so long to get to them. And yeah, this is all by Hamas's playbook. So us knowing these stories, knowing that every day that passes, the conditions of the hostages is getting worse and worse. That is what they want, because it also, of course, strengthens the stop the war movement in Israel that demands that Israel stop the war in order to get the hostages out, even though such a deal isn't really on the table. Thank you,
Hamas,
Jonathan, for
Hamas,
the super chat.
Hamas may not be. Sorry, I cut you off there, Jonathan. Thanks for the super chat. Look, Hamas may not be expert at state building. They may not try to build a civil society, but the one thing they seem to be great at is sadistic torture. They seem to really know how to press buttons and really know how to build how to torture people in such a way as to create maximum effect across multiple areas of our culture. So they can simultaneously torture the people in the tunnels, knowing that their families are going to be panicking, oh, no, knowing that their kids and brothers and sisters are being put in this terrible conditions, and they're going to protest out loud to the government, and that's going to create rifts and schisms within the government and create chaos. That's what they're good at. That's all they do is create chaos.
Um, all right, we don't have time to go through all the troll comments. There's quite a few. There's one that I see that I do want to read. It's only because I see it, and this person is third in most comments on today's show. Those that support Israel, misspelled, of course, were raised by racist families with an apartheid mentality. It's interesting that like this is I'm not going to read the name because it's a troll, but it's an Arabic name, and it's interesting that we've come to a point in the West where people from an Arabic background, the most backwards racist societies on the planet, uh, can say something like that. And many will say, yeah, that's true. Yeah, these are white settler colonialists who, are bothering the anti-racists in Palestine who, remember, the only reason there's a problem there is because they don't want anybody who's not like them. The reason why they talk about white settler colonialists there, but they don't talk about, black settler colonialist or Indian settler colonialist in the UK is because this is not a society that kills everybody who's the wrong skin color and the wrong background. So them wanting to kill people makes them kind of more entitled to to their racist ideology. But yeah, this does pass as argument today in the West.
Well, I'd bet this fella's was probably raised by a racist family. I wasn't, and but he presumes I was because I'm pro-Israel, a racially diverse community, by the way, a racially diverse state. If you could point out the racial diversity in Gaza and the tendency on the part of the Gazan people to desire racial diversity and religious diversity, a pluralistic society, please do, my Arabic friend. I doubt you'll find it there. And we do have, I mean, from the 7th century on, a long history of Islamic conquest and murder of people for the simple fact that they didn't share the same religion as them. I call that high bigotry, my friend. And a long, long, long history predating European expansionism and imperialism of raiding the European coast to take on white slaves in Africa and post them throughout the Islamic world. So your society, my friend, generally has a lot of growing up to do. And if you look back on those times with wonder, as the high times of the Islamic movement, you, my friend, are the one with the problem, and were likely raised by racist, bigoted parents. So check your premises, pal, before you come on here and fuck with us, okay?
Yeah, but but yeah, keep coming because you are giving us points that we can again we're not talking to you, we're talking about you more than anything because it's important to point out how these people argue in case you
Important to
find
point out how
yourself
absolutely stupid you are and uninformed and the kinds of presumptions you make that come from your stupidity and lack of information.
but that are more mainstream than the ideas that we promote on this channel, which is something we're trying to of course change. So today's show is getting higher viewership, at least live, than normal. If you comment, share, like the show, it will likely indicate to the algorithm that this is something that people are interested in. It might indicate it to the algorithm enough that next time Greta Googles herself, she will find this video and look, it's boring on a boat after a few days. She's going to want some interesting content. So, Greta, I repeat my call to you. Become rational, and you will, among other benefits to your life, also be invited to be a guest on the Daily Objective. Thank you, Mumu Joe, for the super chat. Thank you, PC, for the super chat. PC says there is no Palestine. Yes, but there will be if Israel doesn't wake up, and it will be instead of Israel. So, time to wake up. And thank you, Apollo Zeus, for the super chat. Parting thoughts, Mark? And where can people find you?
No, look, this flotilla is obviously a publicity stunt on the part of some very narcissistic people who are looking to make their social profiles bigger and become more famous. That's all they are about. They're not really about helping people. If they were, they probably would have tried to rescue that boat of refugees. Whether were they Sudanese refugees? Um, whatever godforsaken country those people were running away from towards freedom, the Freedom Flotilla did not act on its quote unquote moral premises and go bring them to freedom. They let them get picked up by some godforsaken navy that will take them somewhere and torture them and probably murder them. Where life is cheap, folks. So don't fool yourself. This is a gigantic virtue signal from people who support terror and are only interested in increasing their TVQ. As for me, you can find me on Mark R. Pellegrino on X, Mark Ross Pelly with the check mark. Make sure it's me because people try to imitate me on Instagram. If you want dog pictures and jujitsu, that's what I put on Instagram. It's much less vitriolic than my uh, uh, X content. And you could also go to AmericanCapitalistParty.org, join, donate, become a part of the change. We're trying to change the conversation here in the United States of America and hopefully abroad about the political class. And we're trying to let people get moral agency back in their lives and take control of their own lives because a big government means a small individual, and we'd rather have a big individual than a small government. So please join us.
Links in the description. Yeah, the godforsaken country those refugees were running from is Libya, or as I
Libya.
call it, Palestine. Yeah. So interesting that they didn't want to save people from that country. We're back here tomorrow with the Daily Objective. On the reality show, we are going to talk about this BBC Verify story, doubling down on using Hamas as an absolute source of information. I'm Razi Ginzberg on X. Yeah, mine is vitriolic, and unfortunately, there's no Insta. I mean, I'm on Instagram technically, but there's no Instagram positive side of things. We're gonna do that separately in America, by the way. On July 1st, we are doing the Daily Objective and the reality show live on stage. Make sure you join us. Free to attend. Link will be in the description. And yeah, another event in October, which we will announce in the coming weeks. No, WUB Pierce did not block me yet. I maybe am not tweeting at him enough, but I'll get on that. Thanks, Mark. Thanks, everybody, for watching. We'll see you back here tomorrow.
You got it.